A contract that was signed in the NBA yesterday may actually have a big effect on OG Anounby's upcoming free agency. So let's break down just exactly what he's going to be worth and if the Raptors can re-sign him this summer. So that contract in question came from the New York Knicks. I mean, we've had very little information around the Toronto Raptors and the NBA in general in the last few weeks. We're at that time of the summer, in the middle of August, where nothing is going on really. Last summer, at least, there was a Kevin Durant saga going on. So that was a consistent theme and story for the Raptors and the NBA. This year, I mean, Dame and Harden are kind of going on, but for really, Damian Lillard making it clear that he wants to go to Miami kind of killed that any legs in that story, and nobody cares enough about James Harden to make that a full-on story for the upcoming summer. But something that we did get in terms of news yesterday was the extension that went to Josh Hart on the New York Knicks. Josh Hart got traded at the trade deadline to the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks severely underpaid to get him. That was a mistake by the Portland Trailblazers. But after impressing in the second half of the season, doing really well with the New York Knicks, he was rewarded with a 4-year extension on his contract worth $81 million. So just above $20 million a year for the 4 years after the upcoming year, where he's going to be making around $13 million. So congratulations to Josh Hart for earning a contract like that. But man, thinking about this, like even 2, 3, 4 years ago, Josh Hart, I respect him as a player, but Josh Hart's making $20 million a year. And that seems like a reasonable contract for him in 2023. It's kind of crazy where we're at with contracts and evaluation of these contracts, but that's just the money that Josh Hart is capable of making at this point. Josh Hart is a really good glue guy to have in the core. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as calling him like the fifth man in the starting lineup, but very much like that presence on defense, a really, really good rebounder for his size and for his position, and a decent shooter at that. I mean, he's just a tenacious player that fits perfectly into the system for Tibbs out in New York. But a player of Josh Hart's caliber making $20 million a year for 4 more years, that contract won't even look crazy in 5 years, I tell you. But Josh Hart making $20 million makes you really wonder exactly what OG Anounby is going to be making when he has to sign his contract, which is coming up at the end of this season. There's 1 year left on OG Anounby's contract. Technically, there's not 1 year. There's a player option worth about $19 million at the end of this season. Seeing as Josh Hart just signed for $20 million a year, OG Anounby's not going to be taking that player option for $19 million a year. He's going to be getting a lot more than $19 million. Right now, OG Anounby is extension eligible for a 4-year contract worth $116.9 million. And top of my head, that's right around $29 million. Let me just fully confirm that right now. Yeah, $29.225 million. I was close though. So $29 million a year is the extension that OG Anounby is eligible to receive in this summer. If you told me that was OG Anounby's extension amount a month ago, a little bit over a month ago, 2 months ago, you told me that was OG Anounby's extension, I probably would have gone, hey, that's a lot of money for OG Anounby. I mean, that's probably going to be fine. I mean, they may not have to pay him that entire max amount that he can receive to keep him with the team. And then I saw free agency. I saw in particular, I saw Bruce Brown get a $22 million contract. And then I saw Jeremy Grant get his monster contract. And then more in particular, I saw this contract. I saw Cam Johnson, who I respect as a player, signed for $27 million a year. When I found out the figures that were in the range for Cam Johnson, I couldn't believe it. I was laughing so hard that he's going to be making that kind of money. I respect him as a player. That is so much money. And with all due respect to Cam, he's not OG Anounby. He's not as good of a defender. He's, maybe a little bit more versatile offensively, but for OG Anounby's role, OG Anounby is a superior player to Cam Johnson. So OG thinking, well, hey, if he's getting 27, I'm going to be making at least 29, and there's no reason for OG to not at least try and get more in the upcoming offseason. This is where there seems to be some problems coming up for the Toronto Raptors. I saw this article today that made me kind of want to talk about this. This comes from RaptorsRapture.com. This article is written by Mike Luciano. cite a lot of these articles from my videos. But this is the article that kind of spurred this because the title of the article is OG Anounby contract could be a steal for the Raptors after the Josh Hart extension. And, okay, if we see, okay, we saw Josh Hart make $20 million a year. So if OG does sign that $116.9 million extension that he's eligible to receive this summer, that would be a steal based on all the things I'm telling you guys, based on all the contracts that we've seen, based on the way the market is being set for the player. The problem is, there's no reason for OG Anounby to sign this contract right now. Yes, it would be a really nice contract to get him on, but he's not going to sign that contract. I remember when OG signed his current contract, the 4-year, $72 million deal. I said at the time, like, okay, it seems like a lot now. It's going to look like an absolute steal in a few years, and that's where we're at right now. OG making peanuts compared to the rest of the NBA. But, again, it'd be a steal if he's going to sign the extension. There's no reason for OG Anounby to sign the extension. Number one, he's eligible to receive more money next summer. Whether that's from, like, even if it is from the Raptors, he's eligible to receive more money at the end of the season as he gets towards that free agency. Number two, I mean, OG has been clamoring about his role with the team for a little while now. There's a bidding war that's going to be afoot. I mean, we see the interest consistently with OG Anounby as far as trades go. He's always linked in these sort of trades because teams understand that OG, this is like the perfect complementary player to any team, especially contending teams around the league. So there is going to be a lineup of teams wanting to give OG Anounby a contract next summer. I don't know. Fred VanVleet is a weird contract because that contract shouldn't define the market. It's like the Rudy Gobert trade. That trade is so out of pocket that that trade shouldn't define the market for star players around the league, all-star players around the league. Just like Fred VanVleet's contract should not be the tone setter for what players are going to receive. Like, that shouldn't be, like, agents and negotiators shouldn't use that Fred VanVleet contract as, well, my guy's better than Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet's making $43 million. Regardless, my point being, the way Fred VanVleet just kind of got outbid and got to that point where he's making that much, I can really see OG getting there. He's going to be easily making $33 million, like $30 million. Like, that is out of the question. OG is the number that OG Anounby's average annual salary starts with is going to be a 3. But there's a potential that that could turn into a 4. Because, once again, as teams start to recognize his abilities, his fit, thinking that maybe this is the final piece of a championship puzzle, there is going to be a lineup of teams trying to give him a contract. And I think himself defining his own market in a little bit of the bidding war is going to allow him to get a big contract next summer. This is a problem for the Raptors, of course, who have consistently lost these key players for nothing. Most recently, the player I mentioned, Fred VanVleet. And this could be the latest one where that happens. This is the problem that the Raptors are in. Pascal Siakam is on an expiring deal. He wants to earn a supermax, and therefore, he doesn't want to sign a contract. The Raptors are looking to trade him. Siakam doesn't want to go anywhere because if he goes anywhere, he's not going to be eligible for that supermax anymore. He has to do it in Toronto. He can only get a supermax with the Toronto Raptors. So that's difficult. So now you look at OG. You want to make sure he's not a free agent because you don't have to worry about OG and Siakam. And also on the side, Gary Trent Jr. is still on an expiring contract. You don't have to worry about OG, but you can't extend him because the max available money you can give him is too low for what he should actually be receiving. This puts the Raptors in a very difficult spot. So as far as OG's contract, next one being a steal, that's not going to happen. He's not going to sign this contract. I mean, the only reason he would sign this contract would be that's a lot of money. That's $29 million a year, and OG's got injury problems. At least he can play this season with the peace of mind that, hey, I've got that money locked in. I don't have to worry about getting injured this season, but if I'm OG Anounby and I'm advising OG Anounby, I'm 100% telling the player right now, you got to make sure you go and play out this season, and you can go earn a contract. And hey, dare I say, with the right bidding war afoot, OG could be making in the range of $40 million per year. That might sound crazy right now, but I think this would be a really, really interesting video to revisit in 11 months and just see how much OG is actually going to be making. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.